It's been the focus of discussions on Parliament Hill for months, triggered accusations, dismissals, and numerous investigations. Tonight, we can tell you CBC News has learned of a new development in the Senate scandal. We've acquired a copy of an RCMP letter that points to where police are heading in their probe of the Mike Duffy affair. The CBC's Diana Swain has the details for us from Ottawa tonight. Diana.
Peter, the letter we've obtained shows the RCMP's questions are now pressing on the door of the Prime Minister's office. This letter, written just last Friday and obtained by CBC News, shows the officer in charge of sensitive investigations for the RCMP wants a closer look at information that may be material to our criminal investigation.
The PMO told me to say my wife and I took out a loan at the Royal Bank.
Thank you. Seems the RCMP, too, was listening as Mike Duffy twice recently stood in the Senate to allege he was part of a scheme to mislead Canadians about who paid back his living expenses, a lie he insists was crafted by the Prime Minister's office.
Written by the PMO to deceive Canadians as to the real source of the $90,000.
If he was hoping to get the RCMP's attention, it worked. In the clearest indication yet of how wide their investigation now is, the RCMP asked for any emails from the PMO, specifically relating to a script for Senator Duffy to follow, adding, the existence of such documentation may potentially be evidence of criminal wrongdoing by others. The RCMP also wants this letter Duffy tabled from then Leader of the Government in the Senate, Marjorie Le Breton's office. Written nearly 5 years ago, it claims the Senate itself can define precisely what residence constitutes. And they want a private email Duffy released, written nearly a year ago by then Chief of Staff Nigel Wright, which seems to indicate the PMO had no problem with Duffy's expenses. Duffy made sure to read that one aloud.
Mike, I am told you have complied with all of the applicable rules.
Duffy insists no one had a problem with his expenses until it became a public issue. And that's when he says the PMO plan to hide the source of the $90,000 was born. Even as he stood in the Senate, Duffy seemed to be directing the RCMP where to look for proof.
Cell phone and PMO telephone records from February will show there were numerous phone calls and emails to me as the PMO developed their version of events and rehearsed with me right up until minutes before I went on television the lines I would use with the media.
When we contacted the RCMP today, Peter, they had no comment on the letter or whether they've obtained what they've asked for.
Diana Swain in Ottawa tonight. Thanks, Diana. Well, what could that letter mean in the long run? Senior correspondent Terry Malewski has some insight on that. Terry.
Well, Peter, the Mounties letter is an extremely ominous development for the Prime Minister because really of what it's not about. It is not about dubious expense claims by senators. It is about something much more serious. Bluntly put, they are looking for evidence to support Mike Duffy's claim that there was a plot in the Prime Minister's office to bribe a senator, meaning Duffy. And the problem is that to prove bribery, Peter, you really need both sides, both the cash and what it bought. And there's no law to stop me giving out bags of money. Maybe I'm just a really nice guy. But if I give it to a politician and I expect something in return, well, that could be criminal. And the rules are very blunt. They say that no senator shall, quote, accept any gift that could reasonably be considered to relate to the senator's position. Now, Duffy's story is exactly that he got the cash for doing what he was told. Pay the money back, follow the script, keep your mouth shut. And we know that is the RCMP's working theory because they've already said so in an affidavit, Peter.
Well, it may be easy to prove, one side of that story. We all know Duffy got the money, but it could be harder to prove what he did for it in return.
Well, agreed, but it's not impossible. First, because the emails, remember, aren't the only evidence. We also know what Duffy actually did. He did offer a cover story about borrowing the cash from the bank. And second, the RCMP is not just fishing for emails that may not exist. Duffy's already made some of them public. The Mounties just want to see all of them to see if there really was a script cooked up in the PMO to conceal the real source of the cash. And if they think they can prove that, then we could see a prosecution, which would really be a political disaster for the government, Peter.
All right, Terry Malewski in our Ottawa Bureau tonight. One final note on the Senate scandal. A vote is expected in the upper chamber tomorrow on a motion to suspend Senators Mike Duffy, Pamela Wallin, and Patrick Brazeau without pay.